This is Talkin' Rock. Talkin' Rock. Your backstage pass to some of your favorite rock artists. Here's your host, Meltdown.
Back at it for another Friday installment of the Talkin' Rock podcast. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And with the passing of Ace Frehley yesterday, I got a hold of one of my friends who might be the biggest Kiss fan I know, David Ellefson, formerly from Megadeth. And, of course, we had to plug his shows coming up here in Michigan. He's playing Cadillac, Michigan, which he's never been to before. They just had all those big 50th anniversary celebrations around when Kiss showed up at Cadillac, Michigan back in 1975. We'll talk about that coming up, of course, a bunch of his memories about the Spaceman, Ace Frehley, as well as what David has going on, because if you know David, he's always got something going on, and many times multiple things going on, and so we talk about that and a bunch more. Got to thank David Ellefson for taking some time to talk with me today. You can watch this on YouTube and WRAF.com as well. There he is. Junior, how you doing, man?
Good, man. How are you? What's happening?
Oh, we've had better days, of course. You know, it's funny. Last time I talked to you, Ozzy passed away, which was just came out of nowhere. And we talked about this a million times. I even have my shirt on. But
nice.
I mean, Kiss played a huge part in your life. Just tell me your thoughts about the passing of Ace Frehley.
So, yesterday I flew into Philadelphia. We're kicking off these 9 shows here with Kings of Thrash. And as I'm landing and the messages are pushing through my phone, you were the first one who sent through something from TMZ about Ace, about his health status. And he goes, dude, do you have any update? Is this real? Da, da, da. So we were chatting and I started hitting some friends about it. And Sean Drover started texting me. He and Willie G, who was Mustaine's guitar tech there for a long time, so we're all still friends and big Kiss fans, of course. And, and it seemed to be confirmed. They said, yeah, the Spaceman has left us. It just hasn't been announced yet. So I had to just kind of sit by and wait for the initial, for the official thing to come out. And when the Rolling Stone article hit, then I think I sent it to you right away as well. And I mean, it's just that moment where you're like, it's coming. I saw the news kind of push through that Ace was in the hospital, but I was on tour, so I didn't dig into any of it. And I was like, oh, no. So Ace and I became friends, not close friends. I mean, we have each other's cell phone. I'd usually text him every year for his birthday, and me and Frank Bello would text him because he played a solo on our Altitudes and Attitude record.
That's right, yeah.
Which we were super grateful for. Clearly our hero, Kiss is the reason I'm even here talking to you. So for me, Destroyer was the first record I bought. I bought it on cassette. Then I, Kiss Alive right after that. And then I went back and, I listened to Dressed to Kill, Hotter Than Hell, the first album, et cetera. And I remained a diehard Kiss fan, pretty much through Kiss Alive 2. And then, I did not buy Dynasty, of all things. And then I kind of moved on. Van Halen came into my life, and then Boston. And then I kind of started getting into, Styx, Grand Illusion, the Ramones, Rocket to Russia. I started getting into some other stuff, But, those formative years, Kiss were my Beatles. And just in the same way the Beatles were the Beatles for Kiss, And, I love Gene Simmons' bass playing. In fact, just today I was listening to Cold Gin and some stuff off of Kiss Alive and thinking, God, this guy is just a masterful bass player, man. And while spitting blood and breathing fire and, doing all the rest of it. And listening to Ace play, Ace wrote some great songs. Megadeth, we covered Strange Ways during the Euthanasia session. And that part of that is because Gene had actually reached out to us about putting a song on the Kiss My Ass album. And so I talked to Gene several times. He and I were, calling each other because Dave just said, have Junior deal with it, So that was kind of in our 93, so kind of our countdown heading into Euthanasia era. We didn't end up putting a song in there. It was just too expensive, quite honestly, to do it. But, Dave's like, tell Gene we want to do an Ace Frehley song. I'm like, great. Nice way to make friends, But, and of course I love Gene, right? Because, he's the bass player, So, I've become friends with those guys over the years. it was great to see Gene officiate Charlie and Carla's wedding, and just all that we are, because we're all we all share. If you're in Megadeth, Anthrax, basically metal allegiance, if you will. We all share the same record collection. So I think all of us were texting each other. So it's one of those moments. It gives a moment to just basically, we kind of have our own mourning and our own sort of little wake, amongst all of us worldwide, us musician guys, yourself included, who are all, I hit Eddie Trunk and Don Jameson and all the guys, so yeah, a sad moment for sure. You realize, Ace Frehley passing is on the level of Eddie Van Halen passing. He was that influential, different guitar player, of course, but, Ace and Eddie, they not only made us want to become musicians, they made us want to become rock stars, and I think that's the difference. Kiss made you want to go to the next level, and Kiss, with their manager Bill Coyne in those early days, they created something that was just unreachable, and to some degree still is. It's what Kiss does. Now we've got Ghost, we got Sleep Token, we got Trans-Siberian Orchestra, so there's artists out there kind of doing what Kiss has done, of course, but when you're the first one doing it, and even Kiss, when they ended it, it was still the biggest thing out there. You know what I mean? They're still doing stuff that it's like, God, only Kiss would, three guys come down from the ceiling, on their platforms, and they still got the boots and the whole thing. You're just like, there's just no replacing what they have done for all of us in our lives.
Yeah, I was lucky enough. I got to Detroit in November of 1995, and in June of 1996, they played Tiger Stadium when they opened up that tour when they reformed. And
yeah, God, I remember that. Me and Marty Friedman were in second row. It was 1996, right? Is that the one you're talking about? Yeah. So 1996, they came through Phoenix, and they played the arena there. And of course, Megadeth had played there a lot, so we knew the building manager. So he got a second row, like dead center tickets, to see the reunion. And we're sitting there. At this point, of course, now we're experienced professionals as well. So it's fun because, I think Marty and I, we could agree it's fun to watch our childhood heroes, because you still get that, we're going to Disneyland. Like, this is, we're going off to Fantasyland, yet now we know the wizard behind the curtain of Oz. We know how it's done, you know what I mean? But they still did it bigger and better than anyone,
Now, you're playing here coming up to the Token Lounge and also the Machine Shop this weekend. We'll put all the information in the story. But are you also playing Cadillac?
Yes, playing Cadillac. Yes.
Yeah. So you've never seen the Cadillac, Kiss Money, have you?
So here's the funny thing. October 9th is the mayor of Jackson, Minnesota, the little town I grew up in. We did the big coffee store there and everything. He decreed that forever and for always as David Ellefson Day, right? So I happened to look up, October 9th is also the day Kiss was given the keys to the city in Cadillac, Michigan, back in 73, 74, whatever this was. 75. Okay. I guess it was the Kiss Alive tour, right? So back then. And, of course, we read about this in all the magazines when we were kids, So I'm thinking, what an awesome day. So it's funny, as we kicked off the tour last week, we were eating ribs down at Nico McBrain's restaurant in Fort Lauderdale, celebrating David Ellefson Day. Meanwhile, I think up in Cadillac was like a whole Kiss, extravaganza going, deservedly so. So, I'm super excited, man. We've never been there. Of course, me and Jeff Young, we're the same age pretty much. And, he saw Kiss on the Kiss Alive tour at Hare Arena in Dayton, Ohio when he was growing up. So we're super, super excited to go. Are you going to be able to join us? Are you going to be able to come up there or not?
It's like 3 hours away. I wanted to go this past weekend, then I had computer issues and I couldn't make it up there. But I'm kind of jealous that I've never been up there to see the Kiss monuments. So I have to make that a journey one day.
Dude, I can't believe. I'm so glad they just did that. It's kind of a big Kiss week, right? So between, the Cadillac thing, Gene marries Carla and Charlie Benante, and then, sadly, this news about Ace. So it's like Kiss is just everywhere again. You know what I mean? For better and not so better, I guess. But, the last time I hung with Ace was a year and a half, well, almost 2 years ago, when Eddie Trunk had his 40-year anniversary of broadcasting, the event that he did over at the House of Blues, Las Vegas. And normally Eddie always had his events in the East Coast, so I could never be there. But he did this one in the West, so I was able to get there from where I live in Arizona. And so there was talk of, me and Portnoy maybe, sitting in and playing with Ace, but Ace brought his own band, so it was fine. But I got to hang out and have dinner with Ace, and in fact, I put that picture up on my Facebook yesterday. And Don Jameson was there, so we were just hanging out, and we had just a lovely conversation. It was really great, just talking about everything from the old rebel rousing days for both of us, and talking shop on business and songs and Kiss stories and Megadeth stories. And so it was really, really great, so, and then I got to, stand side stage and watch him play. And, that new album, I messaged Steve Brown from Trickster. I said, dude, how did you get Ace to play and sing like that? The record's great. It's like, to me, it was like, that 10,000 volts was as good as the first Ace Frehley solo record with Rip It Out and everything else. Right. So he just said, man, I just got him to sit down and play guitar, and it was not hard at all. And so I was just so happy for them. I love that record. I think that's when we were on Bass Warrior back in March, we were driving around Europe listening to 10,000 volts, kind of just being fans, as we all are. So, it's sad news. You think about it though, he was what, 74? Yeah, 70, I think. Yeah. So 74 Ace Frehley years. That's like, 77 Ozzy Osbourne years. I mean, these are guys that were true rock and rollers in every sense, So, the fact that our beloved heroes have been with us this long, is something I think we all should be thankful for as well, because they certainly gave us a lot.
Yeah, Don Jameson, actually, before when I was waiting for you to log in, he posted on his Instagram about that night. And he said that Ace looked at him and couldn't think of who he was. He's like, "Now, where do I know you from?" He goes,
I think I remember that, actually, yeah.
And he's like, "I'm Don Jameson. I'm a comedian." And I guess they called for an Uber, and Ace looked at Don and said, "Let's just tell jokes for the next 15 minutes, whatever," something like that. So, and, Don,
I remember Don saying some days, because Ace was telling some jokes. And Don said, he goes, Ace, you got really good timing for a comedian. He goes, as a comedian, there's sort of a pace and the cadence of how you tell a joke. So those guys are sitting there, and Ace, I think, was just a natural born, storyteller and joke teller, you know what I mean? But yeah, those two guys were kind of broing down, talking shop on comedy, you know what I mean? It's pretty fun.
He was a funny dude and quite a character. There's a lot of people in this business that I wouldn't consider a character, but he was definitely one of them.
For sure. No, 100%, man. He was kind of the same guy throughout, it seems like. And one of the funniest things about Ace, you think about his guitar playing, and there's the solo, the do 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 right out of Kid from Kiss Alive, and he's got his signature licks, as we all do. But one of his greatest signature licks didn't require any notes at all. It was the toggle switch on the Les Paul on the beginning of Cold Gin. Yeah. Right. I mean, dude, that lick, because it's a lick, right? And, even though it's a mechanical thing, dude, that as much as anything defined Ace Frehley, man. And just something so charming and simple like that. It just was so Ace,
Yeah, no doubt. We can sit here and talk about Ace all day long. I'm sure you're going to be talking about him for quite a while. But what do you have going on, man? At the Kings of Thrash, you got all sorts of stuff happening, as you always do. I texted you. I'm like, tell me what you have going on, because I can't keep up with you.
Yeah. I sent you back a little itinerary, I think. Yeah. Well, so we got Kings of Thrash dates here. Newark, Delaware tonight, New Jersey tomorrow, and then we're making our way over to you guys in Michigan coming up this weekend. So it's like 9 shows over the next 10 days. And I'll go back to Arizona for some Halloween time. And then right after that, I've got 2 weekends of the Alice Cooper rock and roll fantasy camp.
Yeah.
Welcome to my rock camp with Rob Halford as a featured guest, which is great because Priest and Alice are on tour together right now.
Yeah.
So doing that, and then Kings of Thrash go to Mexico for our first trip down there, so we're doing that, and then I go over to Europe. We've actually got something we're going to be announcing here in 10 days or so, some dates over there. So I guess technically we're kind of announcing it right now, but I've got some Bass Warrior dates that'll be coming up the first week of December. And then, from there, I'll kind of chill through the rest of December. And then we just announced in January around the NAMM show, we've got the Metal Allegiance show at the Anaheim House of Blues. Yep, which is always that first Thursday night of NAMM. So NAMM, I'm not going to have the coffee booth this year. We've done it the last couple of years. I just kind of wanted to lighten the load and do Metal Allegiance and just kind of walk the NAMM floor a little bit and just kind of chill this year a little bit. So I'm sure jam sessions and other things always ramp up around that. And then Kings of Thrash is heading to Japan in February, and we also announced some Canada shows that we're going to be doing in May, and in between there's like a whole bunch of other stuff that's to be announced here in the coming weeks. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, the calendar's pretty full, man. It's like I'm out here full time rocking the free world, man.
Yeah, and also within all the stuff you're doing, you got to get me on the Monsters of Rock cruise. So that's
that's right. Yeah. Thank you for reminding me. So in April, so Jeff Scott Soto and I just put out a record back in August called Unbreakable. I think a very good record, if I may say so myself. That band really plugs and plays very, very well together. So we have a warm-up show that we're going to do at the Whiskey in Hollywood on April 9th. Then we get on the boat on the Monsters Rock Cruise out of Miami. That's 12 through 17, April 12th through 17, I believe is what that is. So, doing that. Yeah. Then we go to Canada with Kings of Thrash. And like I said, a whole bunch more stuff that'll be announced here in the next few weeks as well. So,
and you still haven't mentioned getting me on the boat. That's the number one priority as far as that's concerned.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So anyway, me and Jeff Scott Soto are going on the boat. No. And we will probably bring our friend Meltdown. So, it would be great to have you, dude. That's such a fun, all the cruises are great. I've done, Shiprocked, and obviously we had a mega cruise. We formed Metal Allegiance on the Motorhead, the motorboat cruise. So, I've done a lot of these. I did 2 years ago, I did a Monsters Rock cruise. It was super great. The British Lions on there, Zach Wilds with Black Label Society, Night Ranger. So, cool mix of, stuff that we all know, right? Stuff that's, probably been on your airwaves and in our record collections,
Yeah, so we were talking about this yesterday for a few minutes, but last time I talked to you, you told me about, standing on the side of the stage watching Ozzy Back to the Beginning, and you watched Mama, I'm Coming Home. And Bill Crane said, Lemmy wrote that. And in the book, The Last Rites, I was telling you about this. Ozzy said Lemmy wrote that in under 2 hours, and he wrote 3 different versions of it or something. I guess Lemmy had way with words and stuff. Have you had a chance to see the book or anything?
Well, I have not. I've heard of it. I know of it. Max Norman was here on the bus with us last week. He came to our show in Tampa, and Max is a funny guy, man. He's, his British Midlands accent and his stories. He is funny. And, he recorded the first 3 Ozzy records, Blizzard of Oz, Diary of a Madman, and Bark at the Moon. In fact, he even did the first mix of it. I was not aware of that. And they did those, I think, all at Ridge Farm Studios there, where Max was the staff house engineer. And we were talking about Ozzy stuff, and he said Lemmy. He said that he thought Lemmy had written quite a bit with Ozzy. They were good friends, and obviously I'm Coming Home was the big one. What Whitfield Crane told me that I didn't know was we were standing there in the stadium, is that the song was about England. Mama, I'm coming home. Mama is England. And then as I started listening, I was going, God, okay, that would make sense because, you could have been a better friend to me. I was going, that's a weird line to put in a song. And then I was thinking, okay, maybe, because both Lemmy and Ozzy moved over to L.A. They lived in California. So maybe they were thinking about, I don't know, back in their homeland of England. So just putting it out there that if that's true, and I have to trust, because Whit lived with Ozzy and Sharon for a while. Whit basically backpacks around the world and just shows up in random places. I remember when we were at Ozfest '98. He goes, "Yeah, I live with Ozzy and Sharon." I'm like, when? Since when? I've been hanging out over there. So he would know, of course, about something like that. But I thought that was a very interesting twist on that song. So every time I hear it now, I think about it more as a patriotic song rather than, mama doesn't mean your mom. You know what I mean? So it's that kind of thing.
No, that's great, and I thought about you right away because he wrote 4 songs on No More Tears, and Ozzy said in the book that he probably made more money off those 4 songs than the entire Motorhead publishing rights.
I'm sure he did.
Yeah,
I'm sure he did. Yeah. It's and that's funny that Lemmy, all that he is. Funny, I was just listening to No Sleep Till Hammersmith yesterday on the airplane. Because that's kind of my groove, and I love Fast Eddie Clarke was such a great guitar player and a cool songwriter, cool riffs, and just listening to a lot of those lyrics, and that was kind of my Motorhead sweet spot, was kind of in that era. But, you think about Lemmy, I was thinking about him as a writer, writing with Ozzy, that, there's always more to each of us than just what you hear maybe in our own band, and then for Ozzy or for Lemmy to step out of Motorhead and, write with his buddy Ozzy, there's a different mood, a different, maybe a different permission that you can write other stuff that doesn't have to just sound like Motorhead. I remember that being in Megadeth, it kind of always had to sound like Megadeth because that's what your fans want. You know what I mean? You're supposed to, in Ace, look, let's go back to Ace Frehley, as we've seen in these documentaries, and, Ace wanted to quit Kiss apparently and go solo. And Gene Simmons, I think, was the one that said, don't quit. Why don't we all, or the manager, somebody said, why don't you all 4 do solo albums? That way it doesn't look like one guy's out going rogue, so that idea that at the peak of their career, maybe Ace was unsatisfied. Who knows? Maybe, that's how we are sometimes in bands. You want to spread your wings and do some other things, but you're not really allowed to inside of your band. And that's how bands are. So they all each did solo albums at the same time, which is pretty bold, I like Paul's album a lot. The others, I like Gene's probably the next. Mostly See You in Your Dreams Tonight with Rick Nielsen on guitar. I thought that was kind of cool. Peter Criss's stuff is pretty out of my wheelhouse musically, you know what I mean? So it wasn't so much something that I listened to. But Ace Frehley's, his solo album is great. In fact, the opening track, Rip It Out, me and Frank Bello, we had that in our Altitudes and Attitudes set list.
Yeah.
That was just the go-to.
No, that's great. I was listening to it say, you're right. It's my favorite solo record of the 4 as well. So
yeah.
Really cool. Well, I'll tell you what, Junior, we'll let you split here.
Thank you, man.
Let's see. Friday, you'll be at the at the machine shop as we post this, and then Saturday at the Token Lounge down here in Detroit. So looking forward to seeing you 2 nights.
And then don't forget Cadillac on Thursday.
Yeah.
So
you know what? When you were talking earlier, I thought that maybe you were doing Cadillac this weekend, and I'm like, I might be able to take a ride up there. But I don't think I'll be able to cut that one. That's about 3 hours away. But I'm jealous you're going up there. It's gonna be fun.
I'll tell you all about it when I see you on Friday and Saturday.
All right, you got it. I cannot wait. Yeah, I was going to go up there last weekend when they were doing all the 50th anniversary celebrations. I wanted to leave my house at noon, and what happened was I had some computer issues for something I do on the weekend, and I couldn't get my computer working right, and it actually wasn't on my end. It was on the company end. But anyways, I ended up not getting my work finished until like almost 2 o'clock, and by then it was like, I don't know, do I make the 3-hour trek up there? And come back later on and blah, blah, blah. And I guess I kind of got lazy and just decided not to. But anyways, yeah, there you go. Check out David and his band, the Kings of Thrash, at the Machine Shop on Friday, at the Token Lounge on Saturday, and, of course, everything else David has going on. He seems to have his hands in a bunch of things. Hey, thank you so much for checking out the podcast, of course. Godspeed to Ace Frehley and condolences to his family, friends, and fans as well.
Thank you for listening to Talkin' Rock with Meltdown. You can help this podcast grow by giving it a 5-star rating and writing a review on Apple and iTunes. Plus, feel free to subscribe and share it with your friends. Until next time, thanks for listening to Talkin' Rock.